Nigeria urges AU to intensify crackdown on terror financing. Senate expands Safe School probe, extend timeline. High Court sentenced 2 to death for rape and murder of teenager. NSCDC secures life sentence for sex offender in KWARA. In business, Japan commits $1 million to train 2,000 Nigerian teachers in digital skills. Plus, U.S. signs landmark civilian nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia. Hello and welcome. This is Security News Panorama here in Third Eye Africa Television. I am Juliet Ora. Glad to have you join us here. Let's take you through details of our stories. Nigeria has urged the African Union Peace and Security Council to strengthen the effort to curb illicit financial flows, describing them as key source of funding for terrorism and violent extremism across Africa. Speaking at the AU Peace and Security Council's 135th ministerial meeting, Foreign Affairs Minister Bianca Odumegwu said terrorist groups continue to exploit illicit financing, kidnapping for ransom, illegal mining, and emerging technologies, including drones, to sustain their operations. She called for stronger international cooperation to trace, recover, and repatriate illicit funds, while urging African countries to implement commitments made at previous Continental Counterterrorism Summit. Odumegwu also warned against portraying Africa as the global epicenter of terrorism, saying such narrative could unfairly stigmatize innocent Africans. The minister reaffirmed Nigeria's commitment to a comprehensive counterterrorism strategy, combining military operation intelligence sharing, regional cooperation, de-radicalization programs, and community-based initiatives. She also advocated enhanced cybersecurity, stronger early warning systems, disruptions of terrorist financing networks, and tighter controls to prevent non-state actors from acquiring sophisticated weapons. From the federal government has congratulated Andy Burnham on his assumption of office as the new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, expressing optimism that relations between both countries will continue to grow stronger. In a congratulatory message, President Bola Tinubu reaffirmed Nigeria's commitment to deepening bilateral cooperation with the United Kingdom in key areas including trade, investment, security, education, climate action, and democratic governance. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu described Nigeria and the United Kingdom as long-standing partners with deep historical ties and shared interests. He expressed confidence that the new British administration would work closely with Nigeria to strengthen diplomatic relations, expand economic opportunities, and address common global and regional challenges for the mutual benefit for both countries. The president wished Prime Minister Burnham a successful tenure and assured him of Nigeria's readiness and continuous partnership in building a long-standing friendship between the two countries through constructive dialogue and enhanced cooperation. Meanwhile, the Senate has expanded the scope of its ongoing investigation into the implementation of the Safe School initiative and granted its ad hoc committee an additional 3 weeks to conclude the probe. The upper chamber also widened the investigation to include the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, Nigeria Education Loan Fund, Universal Basic Education Commission, the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, and the National Social Investment Program Agency. Chairman of the ad hoc committee, Senator Orji Uzo Kalu, said preliminary findings revealed that the implementation and funding of the Safe School initiative were closely linked with education funding, student welfare, and social intervention programs managed by the affected agency. He noted that broadening the investigation would enable the Senate to carry out a more comprehensive assessment of accountability, funding, and the effectiveness of program design to improve the safety and welfare of Nigerian students. The Senate has approved the request following a voice vote presided over by Senate President Godwin Akpabio. The committee is expected to examine financial flows, operational challenges, and intervention projects under the affected agency before submitting its final report. The Safe School Initiative was established in 2014 following the Chibok schoolgirls' abduction to strengthen security in schools across the country. Moving forward, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration Control, NAFDAC, has arrested a suspected producer of counterfeit alcoholic beverages during an enforcement operation aimed at curbing the production and distribution of fake drinks. The operation was carried out following intelligence that led officials to an illegal production facility where adulterated beverages were allegedly being manufactured and packaged for distribution. Authorities also recovered large quantities of counterfeit drinks, empty brand bottles, packaging materials, and production equipment from the premises. NAFDAC has said that the suspect was taken into custody while investigation continued to identify other members of the network involved in the production and distribution of the fake product. The agency warned that the consumption of counterfeit alcoholic beverages pose serious health risks, including poisoning, organ damage, and even death, stressing that the enforcement exercise forms part of its ongoing nationwide campaign against substandard and falsified regulated products. NAFDAC reaffirmed its commitment to protecting public health by intensifying surveillance and enforcement operations across the country. The agency urged consumers to purchase beverages only from authorized outlets and encouraged members of the public to report suspected cases of counterfeit food and drink production to the nearest NAFDAC office for prompt actions. Similarly, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control has commenced a nationwide enforcement operation to remove banned sachet alcohol and alcoholic beverages packaged in PET bottles below 200 milliliters from circulation. The agency said the exercise is in line with the federal government's ban on the production, importation, distribution, sales, and use of alcoholic drinks packaged in sachet and small PET bottles as part of efforts to protect public health. NAFDAC say that the enforcement team have been deployed across the country's 6 geopolitical zones to conduct coordinated operation in market, motor parks, retail outlets, bars, and other distribution channels to identify, seize, and remove the banned product. The agency directed manufacturers, importers, distributors, wholesalers, retailers, transporters, and other stakeholders still in possession of the affected products to surrender them immediately, warning that continued possession or sales constitutes a violation of the law and could attract sanctions and prosecution. NAFDAC explained that the nationwide mop-up is aimed to reduce underage drinking, harmful alcoholic consumption, and substance abuse, particularly among children and young people. The agency urged members of the public to support the enforcement exercise by refraining from purchasing banned products and reporting anyone involved in the production, distribution, or sales of the prohibited alcoholic beverages to the nearest NAFDAC office. A state high court has sentenced 2 men to death by hanging after finding them guilty of the gang rape and murder of a teenager. The verdict delivers justice in a tragic case that sparked widespread public outrage across the country. Delivering judgment, the presiding judge ruled that the prosecution successfully proved all counts of criminal conspiracy, rape, and culpable homicide beyond a reasonable doubt. The court established that the conviction lured the teenage victim to an isolated location, sexually assaulted her, and subsequently killed her to cover up their crime. Strong forensic evidence combined with matching witness testimony sealed the convictions. Condemning the act as heinous and unacceptable, the judge held that the heinous activity and the severity of the offense warranted the maximum legal penalty, officially sentencing both convicts to death by hanging. And still on our bulletin, the Federal High Court in Abuja has rejected an application by activist Omoyele Sowore to tender uncertified court records in his ongoing criminal defamation trial. Shore is being prosecuted by the Department of State Services over social media posts in which he allegedly described President Bola Tinubu as a criminal. During proceedings, Shore's lead counsel, Adeyinka Olumide Fuskia, SAN, sought to present copies of earlier court documents through his third defense witness, Barrister Yinye Chikeze Elijah. Prosecuting counsel Akiolu Kaide SAN raised a strong objection, arguing under the Evidence Act that public court records are only admissible if submitted in their original forms or certified true copies. Sustaining the prosecution's objections, presiding judge Justice Muhammad Garuba Umar ruled that documents held in private legal custody require certification to guarantee they have not been altered or tampered with. Marking the document as rejected, Justice Umar subsequently adjourned the matter until July 28 for the continuation of the defense. Still on legal matters, the Federal High Court is set to deliver its final forfeiture judgment in the case involving suspect linked to a multi-million-dollar Nigerian-Mexican methamphetamine laboratory uncovered in a remote forest in Ijebu, Ogun State. Ahead of the proceeding, officials of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency escorted journalists to the clandestine facility where investigations uncovered what has been described as one of the country's largest illegal methamphetamine production sites. The NDLEA said the operation that led to the discovery of the laboratory resulted in the arrest of 7 key members of the drug syndicate, including 3 Mexican nationals alleged to have been brought into Nigeria to manufacture methamphetamine alongside 4 Nigerian collaborators. The agency said the suspects were apprehended while the illicit drug was processed at the hidden facility deep inside the forest. The court is expected to determine the final forfeiture of the property and exhibit connected to the illegal operation as the prosecution continues its effort to dismantle international drug trafficking networks operating in the country. The NDLEA has reaffirmed its commitment to combating organized drug crimes and preventing Nigerians from becoming a hub for production and distribution of illicit narcotics. 2 suspected senior commanders of the terrorist group Ansaru this week pleaded guilty to 32 terrorism-related charges before the Federal High Court in Abuja. The defendant, Mahmoud Usman, also known as Abu Bara, and Abubakar Abba, also known as Mahmoud Al-Nigri, admitted their roles after changing their earlier not guilty plea during proceedings initiated by the Department of State Services. Following their guilty plea, the court convicted both men and sentenced them to life imprisonment. The sentence has sparked mixed reaction, with many Nigerians arguing that life imprisonment is too lenient considering the gravity of the offense and the impact of their alleged actions. Correspondent Saadatu Suleiman Kamba has more reports.
The charges against the 2 men include terrorism, kidnapping, conspiracy, and other offenses linked to a series of violent attacks in different parts of Nigeria. Prosecutors allege that Mahmoud Usman and Abubakar Abba played key leadership roles in coordinating the activities of the extremist group. Their guilty pleas mark a significant development in the federal government's ongoing prosecution of suspected terrorist operatives, as authorities intensify efforts to dismantle violent extremist networks and hold those responsible for terrorist activities accountable. Given the gravity of terrorism offenses and their devastating impact on lives and national security, many Nigerians believe the punishment should reflect the full weight of the law. They argue that the maximum sentence ought to be imposed to serve as a strong deterrent and ensure that justice is seen to have been fully served. Reacting to the judgment, Barrister Kerekin, convener of Lawyers for Democracy, argued that justice was not fully served. He called on the National Assembly to review the Terrorism Act to make the death penalty to the maximum punishment for terrorists convicted of heinous crimes. On his part, Mr. Gyara John supported the judgment but insisted that, considering the gravity of the offences committed, the convicts deserved the death penalty. He argued that convicted terrorists who claim to have repented often return to their criminal activities and should therefore be permanently removed from society. The Department of State Services that prosecuted the case has also expressed dissatisfaction with the life sentences, describing them as inadequate considering the gravity of the offences. The agency said it would appeal the judgment, reaffirming its commitment to ensuring that individuals involved in terrorism are held fully accountable under the law. DSS said the convicts were among the senior leaders of the proscribed terrorist group and had received terrorist training outside Nigeria. It added that they were connected to several major attacks, including the 2022 Kuje Custodial Center attack and other acts of terrorism.
Thank you, Saadatu, for bringing us that report. We'll take a short breather right now. Do stay tuned as we bring you more on business. Welcome back. I am Hawa Umar and this is Business Brief. The United Kingdom's annual inflation rate dropped to 2.6% in June, down from 3.4% in May, driven largely by lower fuel prices and easing transport costs. The latest figures released by the Office for National Statistics, ONS, indicate that the decline brings inflation closer to the Bank of England's target and offers some relief to households grappling with rising cost of living. The ONS say falling petrol and diesel prices were the biggest contributors to the slowdown, although food prices and some services costs remain elevated. Economists say the latest figures could influence the Bank of England's monetary policy decisions in the coming months, particularly as policymakers continue efforts to balance inflation control with economic growth. Despite the encouraging decline, analysts have cautioned that inflationary pressures have not completely disappeared, urging continued monitoring of energy prices, wages, and global economic conditions. The UK government welcomed the development, describing it as a positive sign of progress in efforts to stabilize the economy and reduce the financial burden on businesses and consumers. In another development, the Japanese government has committed $1 million to fund a comprehensive digital capacity building program for 2,000 Nigerian teachers. The international grant aims to modernize teaching methodologies, boost digital literacy in public schools, and expand quality education access across the country. The funding initiative is being implemented in partnership with UNESCO's International Institute for Capacity Building in Africa, IICBA, and the Federal Ministry of Education. Target participants drawn from selected colleges of education and secondary institutions across Nigeria will receive specialized training in digital pedagogy, e-learning, integration, and modern educational technology tools. Officials emphasize that the capacity building efforts complement Japan's recent donation of ICT equipment to 15 federal and state colleges of education. Stakeholders noted that equipping educators with critical digital skills will significantly improve classroom instruction standards, bridge the digital divide, and foster long-term educational equity, particularly for girls in underserved communities. Also, the Nigerian Naira posted noticeable gains against the British pound in the official foreign exchange market, driven by sustained liquidity interventions and the Central Bank of Nigeria's aggressive monetary tightening. The domestic currency's appreciation reflects growing investor confidence following the CBN's resolve to maintain a hawkish stance to curb inflation and stabilize the exchange rates. Data from the foreign exchange market showed the Naira firming up against the pound sterling,
rebounding from previous trading pressure. Market analysts attribute the currency's upward momentum to tighter system liquidity and heightened central bank oversight across official FX windows. The CBN's persistent rate hikes and high-yield government securities have successfully attracted portfolio inflows, bolstering foreign reserves and helping absorb demand pressure for major international currencies. Official experts note that while the hawkish policy path has raised domestic borrowing costs, it remains a critical anchor for foreign exchange stability. Looking ahead, traders expect the naira to maintain a relatively stable corridor against foreign currencies like the pound and the US dollar, provided the central bank continues its strategic FX interventions and sustain its inflation targeting framework to clear pending FX backlogs. And that's it on business. Do stay tuned for more on Global.
Thank you for staying tuned and right on to Global Update. United States Department of State has issued a worldwide security caution advising American citizens to exercise increased vigilance while traveling or residing abroad. The advisory follows heightened tensions in the Middle East and growing concerns over potential security threats to United States interests and citizens in different parts of the world. The State Department said Americans overseas are encouraged to closely monitor local development, follow security guidance issued by the nearest United States embassy or consulate, and remain alert in public places. The advisory also warned that periodic airspace closures and disruptions to international travel could occur as a result of the evolving security situations. U.S. diplomatic facilities, including those outside the Middle East, have also identified as potential targets. The worldwide caution remains in effect until further notice, with the United States government urging its citizens to review travel plans, maintain situational awareness, and stay informed through official embassy communication while traveling internationally. Meanwhile, Tropical Storm Bertha, the second named system of the 2026 Atlantic hurricane season, is slowly tracking across the northern Gulf Coast, bringing heavy rainfall and gusty winds and dangerous coastal floodings. Despite facing hostile atmospheric conditions that have kept the storm lopsided, its extensive moisture flash is triggering severe flash flood threats along the Gulf Coast and into the mid-Atlantic region. Forming in the northern eastern Gulf of Mexico, Bertha has struggled to organize into a symmetrical cyclone due to a strong upper-level wind, shear, and persistent dry air. Meteorologists note that while near record ocean temperature in the Gulf provided ample temporal energy, hostile upper-level winds displaced most thunderstorm activity to the south of the storm circulation center. As the storm moved past the Louisianian coastal line with maximum sustained wind to 45 to 60 miles per hour, it brought storm surge of 2 to 4 feet and localized flash flooding to coastal areas stretching from eastern Louisiana to Florida Panhandle. Despite Bertha's gradual weakening as it tracks towards Texas coast, meteorologists warn that its primary hazard remains its vast moisture corridor. The storm's tropical moisture is interacting with still cold front over the eastern United States, supercharging rainfall hundreds of miles away in the Carolinas and Virginias. Forecasters emphasize that while El Nino patterns have kept overall storm count lower this season, abnormally warm seas surface temperatures continue to amplify rainfall, intensify, and flood risk across vulnerable coastal communities. To the United States and Saudi Arabia has signed a landmark civilized nuclear cooperation agreement establishing a 30-year multi-billion-dollar framework for nuclear energy development in the United Kingdom. Signed by the United States Energy Secretary Chris Wright and Saudi Arabia Energy Minister Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman, The deal lays the legal foundation for American companies to export reactors, full service, and technical expertise to Saudi Arabia. The pact, known as a Section 123 agreement, provides a legal framework that could allow Saudi Arabia to eventually enrich uranium on its own soil under a proposed joint U.S.-Saudi Arabia commercial framework. Unlike previous regional arrangements, such as the 2009 UAE Gold Standard Agreement, the deal relies on a tailored bilateral safeguard agreement rather than requiring Saudi Arabia to adopt the IAEA's enhanced additional protocol. United States officials emphasized that American personnel will build and oversee facilities without transferring sensitive enrichment technology, effectively locking readers into using U.S. supply chains while preventing Russia or China from dominating the kingdom's energy sector. The timing of the announcement has ignited intense debate on Capitol Hill and among non-proliferation experts, coming amid ongoing United States military operation targeting Iran's nuclear program. Critics warn that providing domestic enrichment pathway without full IAEA oversight risks setting a dangerous precedent and expanding regional proliferation risk. However, the Trump administration defended the agreement, maintaining that it enforces high safety standards, supports high-paying domestic manufacturing jobs, and preserves American influence over Saudi Arabia's long-term energy security. The agreement now faces a mandatory review period in Congress, where lawmakers could seek to challenge its terms. And that wraps up Global Update. Thank you for staying tuned. And that wraps up our bulletin here on Security News Panorama. I am Juliet Oura. Keep watching Third Eye Africa Television as we keep you updated on security matters.